In Scholars of the South Tigris, players are tasked with acquiring scientific manuscripts from around the world. The issue is these scrolls are in all different languages, so you need to hire translators to translate them from their origin language into Arabic. This is done through the playing of action cards. On their turn, the player will play an action card to one of the action spaces on their player board. The various actions can require specific dice colors, specific values, or both. So to activate the action cards, the players will need to place dice on them. The dice you place can be changed and manipulated in a number of ways. We're going to go over all those ways in detail right now as it's a big part of the game. Each action card has 2 slots for dice. A single die on its own is that color and value, so this is a white 3. You may add a worker of the same color to change the value to 6, so now we have a white 6. You can add a different color worker to a die to change that die's color. So if we put a blue worker on this white 3, we now have a blue 3. Note that when you change the color of dice like this is done virtually and you do not gain a die of that color. You can add up to 2 workers per die, so we could add a white worker to this white 3 to make it a 6 and a yellow worker to make it a yellow, so now we have a yellow 6. Note that you cannot add 2 primary color workers to one die to make it a secondary color die. But we can add 2 dice to each action and their colors and values combine as well. So if we had a blue die and a white die, the primary color takes precedence and we combine their values, and so now we have a blue 5. If you had a purple die and a yellow die, the combined die would be purple as the secondary colors take precedent over the primary colors. If we have a yellow 2 and a blue 1, we combine them to make a green 3. If you have 2 secondary colors like purple and orange, you get to choose which one of them the final color will be. And all of this can be mixed and matched together with workers and dice. So we could take a white 2, add a yellow worker to it to make it yellow, and add a blue worker to a red 6 to make it blue, and now we have a green 8. We could add a white worker to this white 1 to make it a 6, then add a red worker to make it red, and then add a blue worker to this blue to make it a blue 6, and now we're left with a purple 12. Basically what I'm getting at is there's a lot of different ways to manipulate your dice. Okay, now let's go over the actions. The first action is the recruit action. This action only cares about the value of dice. At the top of the board are 8 translators, and beneath them is the value needed to employ or dispatch them. If you dispatch them, you will gain the benefit in the top right of their card, and then they will go to the bottom of their pile. Note that I'm not going to go over all the bonuses and symbols in the game, but they're listed on the back of the rulebook along with a color wheel. You may instead employ the translator, in which case they will turn over and you will place them in one of the rooms at the bottom of the board. You will have to pay the room's cost and you will gain the benefit. This translator is now employed by you, and if someone else uses them to translate a scroll, they will have to pay you 1 silver. The next action is the travel action. Here the value of your dice matters, though the color can matter as well. You will move your marker around the map up to the value of your dice. If you pass over a colored area that matches the color of the die you used, you will get that bonus. If you end your movement on a white space, you will immediately gain that bonus. If you land on a black space, you may move the scroll adjacent to your marker from the map to the Houses of Wisdom. You may place it in any of the 3 guilds. It will cost 4 silver, you will gain a gold, and you'll place 1 or 2 of your influence in that guild. The next action is research. For this action, both the color and the value matter. There are 6 fields of science that you are gathering scrolls for: mathematics, physics, chemistry, philosophy, biology, and astronomy. You will bump the track matching the color of the die on your action, and the value dictates how expensive that is. For value 1, you simply gain a worker and a silver. For 4+, you will pay a gold to bump the track and gain 2 silver. 8+ is the same except you don't have to pay a gold. And 10+ and 2 gold gets you 2 bumps and 2 silver. When bumping tracks, if your marker lands on a transparent place, you immediately gain that bonus, whereas the colored spaces will activate during resting, which we'll talk about in a bit. The last action you can do is translate a scroll. To do so, you will need a secondary color die, but the value doesn't matter. You will need a die that matches the guild color of the scroll you are translating. Each scroll has an origin language at the top, and you've got to translate it into Arabic. You do this by paying translators in gold. Each translator speaks 2 or 3 languages shown here. So to get this Chinese scroll to Arabic, we can use this translator to go from Chinese to Greek, this translator to go from Greek to Persian, and then this translator to go from Persian to Arabic. Each translator you use costs 1 gold, but if you're using an opponent's translator or a neutral translator, you will also have to pay 1 silver. Once the scroll is translated, you will gain any instant benefits on it, and it will have endgame scoring on it as well. If a translator ever has gold equal to the amount above their room, they will retire. If that translator is employed by a player, they will take that card and place it under one of their brown actions. This action now has the attached bonus to it and can be activated whenever you take that action. These gray action slots will have multiple actions, and you will choose which one you do when you place an action card there. If you cannot or do not want to play an action card, you can take a rest action. When you rest, you will draw a scroll card from the bottom of the deck and add it to the map, and then you will activate the rest ability on all the action cards you played from left to right. Many of these will allow you to gain income from the various tracks. When doing so, you will gain the benefit from the highest colored space you have reached on that track. Note that you don't activate all the tracks, just the ones you played matching action cards for. The only one you will always activate is Astronomy, as this dictates how many dice you pull out of your bag. Then you will take your action cards back, place dice from your action cards back into your bag, and workers back to the general supply. The game will end when the fourth Caliph card is drawn from the scroll deck. When drawing scrolls, if a Caliph card is drawn, it will be placed here, and then the players with the most influence in the purple guild will take one of their influence and place it on a bonus of their choosing. Then the player who controls the orange will do so, and then the green. The first spot is 3 endgame points, the middle is 1 point and a secondary die, and the third gains you a white die, but you immediately get to retire one of the indicated translators for free. Once the fourth Caliph card is out, you will finish that round and then play one more round. At the end of the game, the players will calculate their scores. You will first see how many more colored dice you have than white dice, and whoever has the biggest difference gains points depending on the player count. Players will then score for their retired translators, from any guilds they control, points from Caliph cards, and for how high they reached on the various tracks. And finally, players will score their various scrolls, and after all that, the player with the most points will win.